In this part of the chapter, we'll be learning about rain, how rain happens, and we'll also be having a look at air and air pollution. Let's get started. Brainstorming question to begin this topic. Have you ever wondered what happens when air with a very high content of water vapor goes from a region of high pressure to a region of low pressure, or vice versa? So we know that when air travels from high pressure to low pressure, then what happens? Wind is occurring, okay, or wind is flowing, okay. The movement of air from high pressure to low pressure, that is being determined by the flow of winds. So when this wind is carrying a high content of water vapor, that means it is saturated, okay, and it is traveling from a high pressure to low pressure. So naturally some precipitation is going to occur, because there is only to an extent that the air particles that they will be able to hold the water vapor, and after some time the condensation would happen in the form of water droplets, and then precipitation would occur in the form of rain. The hot air rises up carrying the water vapor with it, and as the air rises, it expands and cools. This cooling causes the water vapor in the air to condense in the form of tiny droplets. What happens in an atmosphere? There are many air particles, be it dust or be it smoke, and various other small minute particles. And when water vapor, it evaporates from an area where warm air is rising up. So these water droplets, they are rising up along with this warm air, and when they reach the upper parts of the atmosphere where the temperature is comparatively cooler, they condense in the form of tiny droplets. So these water vapor, they condense in the form of tiny droplets around these dust or smoke particles. So these dust or smoke particles, they act as a nucleus, they act as a center around which these tiny droplets, they condense in the form of tiny these water droplets, water vapors, they condense in the form of tiny droplets. Okay, so naturally when the air will rise, it will expand and cool, and this cooling will cause water vapor to condense into water droplets, tiny droplets around these smoke or dust particles. Okay, so once the water droplets, they are formed, they grow bigger by condensation. So what is happening here, that once these tiny droplets, they are being formed, okay, they grow bigger and bigger. So more and more water vapors, they keep rising up. All right, and after they have reached an area where the temperature is comparatively cooler, all of them they condense to form bigger and bigger water droplets around those smoke or dust particles. All right, and finally when they have reached to their maximum extent, that those particles also cannot hold those droplets, water droplets, then precipitation happens. Precipitation happens means then those water droplets, they come down, they shower down from the clouds towards the earth in the form of rain. The drops have finally reached, they have grown big, they have grown heavy, and they have reached their limit of limit. They have basically saturated enough, they are saturated enough to fall down in the form of rain. Right, so we see here that the process of rain, it happens when these water droplets, they condense, when these water vapor, they condense into to form tiny droplets. Those droplets, they assimilate to form clouds, and bigger droplets, they keep on accumulating, they keep on assimilating, and they finally condense in the form of rain. Now let's have a look at air pollution. The fossil fuels like coal and petroleum, they contain small amounts of nitrogen and sulfur. So when we humans, we burn these fossil fuels, naturally oxides of nitrogen and sulfur, they are going to come out of those burn particles, right? So what happens is that these oxides of nitrogen and sulfur, they are harmful for our health, not only for our health but also for the health of other organisms. Okay, and the main reasons via which these oxides of nitrogen and sulfur, they are present in our air around us is via vehicles, means the gases that the gases that come out of the exhaust of vehicles, plus from the chimneys of industries. Okay, because some process, some burning, some combustion some burning process is going on inside the engine of the vehicles, and of course in the industries on a very large scale. So this burning, this combustion leads to the expulsion of oxides of nitrogen and sulfur and various other carbons and hydrocarbons, and these particles they travel around they travel in the waves, they travel in the air waves, in the winds, okay, and they are harming us because they provide a lot of they lead to a lot of diseases, be it skin diseases, be it respiratory diseases, lung diseases, okay. So they are basically polluting our environment, they are polluting our natural resource air, okay. And the link of air pollution to rain is that when these oxides of nitrogen and sulfur they are say coming out from the vehicles, exhaust of the vehicles, or when they are coming out from the industry chimney, then they are also rising up. As you can see here in this animation, they are also rising up along with the air particles and along with the water vapor, since they are very warm, okay. So they are also condensing around those particles along with the water vapor. They are also condensing into tiny droplets. So when when precipitation is happening, when rain is coming down, when rain is falling, these oxides of nitrogen and sulfur, they are also present in those water droplets. All right. So since that rain is not just carrying the molecules of water, but rather it's also holding oxides of nitrogen, sulfur, and many other compounds that are harmful for us organisms, for us living organisms. So this rain, this kind of rain is known as acid rain. As you can see again here in this animation, you can see that nitrous oxides, carbon dioxide, they're coming out from the industry and vehicles, also sulfur dioxide, and they are now then combining with water present in the water vapor present in the clouds, all right, and they are forming carbonic acid, nitric acid, sulfuric acid, okay. Since water vapor is condensing into tiny droplets of water, these oxides, these vapors are also condensing into liquid, into a liquid state, and into carbonic acid, into nitric acid, into sulfuric acid, okay. They are condensing and they are coming down, they are falling down on the earth in the form of acid rain, okay. So we can see here in over here that air is coming out from the chimneys, all right, and this harmful poisonous air carrying oxides of nitrogen, sulfur, carbon, and various other compounds is naturally going to combine with the water vapor and come down, condense down in the form of acid rain. Okay, so presence of high levels of all these pollutants, they cause the visibility to be lowered. So what happens is that especially in cold weather, the water vapor that is present in our atmosphere, they condense to form fog. Okay, they condense to form those misty water droplets. Okay, that means that they condense and the water droplets are also moving along with the air. They are also moving along with the air and the in this phenomenon of fog. Okay, so when air pollutants such as those oxides, harmful oxides coming from the industries, as you can see here in this animation, or from the vehicles or from other incineration sources, okay, when those harmful oxides are coming, so they are basically mixing up with this fog that is already present in the air, that is already present in our atmosphere. Okay, so this combination of smoke and fog, the resultant we have is the smog. And this smog, especially of course in the cold weather, because in the cold weather is only when you're having the fog. So this smog, this causes a very thick layer of white, fumy, dusty particle smoke like environment, smoke like appearance all around us. All right, that is very visible. That is very visible not only to our naked eye, but it is also being perceived by our sense organs. Our eyes, they burn, our throat itches, all right, and we feel very suffocating. Okay, that asphyxiation feeling is there. All right, so this smog is a visible indication of air pollution. Okay, especially you must have seen in the news, of course, that sulfur, the extent of particulate matters in the air components such as sulfur, such as some other particulate matters like oxides of nitrogen, sulfur, they are already rising. They are already have reached to a very high extent, and especially in areas such as Delhi, which is very notoriously renowned for air pollution. Okay, so you have here in the cold weather of Delhi, smog is very prevalent because this smoke, this air pollutants, they are combining these particulate matters, they are combining with fog to form this visible indicator of air pollution. Alright, so this increase in the content of harmful substances in air is called air pollution. Okay, this increase in the content of these harmful substances such as, there are oxides of nitrogen, okay, then you have oxides of sulfur, and also you have oxides of carbon as well, and you would also have some other unburned particulate matters. All right, and these unburned particulate matters, often they are of carbon, and often these particulate matters, they are very harmful for us. Okay, they may be carbon, they may be hydrocarbon. Okay, so we are having all these harmful substances present in the air that leads to air pollution. All right, so you can see here that air pollution is a visible, smog is that visible indicator of air pollution, and you don't have to actually go or visit a place where smog is there in the cold weather. You can actually perceive it all around you because the pollution, the level of air pollution is so prevalent, is so obvious all around us that it is causing many diseases. To us humans, diseases such as even cancer, all right, such as allergies, respiratory diseases, lung diseases, and sometimes they may be even severe and they may even lead to some heart diseases. All right, so the prevention of air pollution is very important. Our pictures, they depict air pollution as I had told you, that poisonous gases coming from the exhaust of vehicles, plus poisonous gases emanating from the chimneys of industries. They are the, these are the number 2 causes of air pollution. All right. How is our atmosphere different from the atmosphere on Venus and Mars? We know that our atmosphere, we have some life aiding elements present in the atmosphere, such as nitrogen, that is 78%, and oxygen, that is 21%, and the rest of the gases such as carbon dioxide, such as argon, such as helium, neon, they are also present, but they are present in very minute quantities. But this arrangement, this existence of all these important gases in such and such amount, this is actually very favorable for life processes and life organisms to exist. All right, whereas in the atmosphere of Venus and Mars, you have very high content of carbon dioxide. So this high content of carbon dioxide, it hinders any life process from occurring or taking place. Okay, so this is the major difference between our atmosphere, between Earth's atmosphere, and from that of Venus and Mars. Then you have that how does the atmosphere act as a blanket? So we have already seen that this atmosphere, this acts as a protective blanket. All right. Why? Because it controls, or it keeps the temperature in check. It keeps the temperature in check. And how does it keep the temperature in check? When it keeps the temperature in check. During the day times, it prevents the temperature to rise up very abnormally, and during the night time, it prevents the planet from getting cold by by keeping some some warm air present inside our atmosphere. It does not let those warm air present inside our atmosphere to evade out into the space. All right. So by keeping the temperature in check, the atmosphere, it is acting as a protective blanket, and it is keeping the temperature of our Earth during the daytime as well as the night time more or less constant in their respective time. Okay. What causes winds? We know that movement of air is known as wind, and the two important factors or two important determinants of wind is air pressure and temperature. So air, it always moves from an area of high pressure to low pressure. All right. and we know that air present in the low pressure area is warm air. It rises up, so that the cold air, the neighboring cold air from the high pressure area, it will rush in to take its place. And this movement creates a convection current. Okay, this movement creates a convection current, and this current is what um, uh, the movement, the all around circular rotation of these convection current is what leads to the flowing of wind. Next, you have how a clouds formed, and we have also seen this, that water vapor, when they rise from the warm land along with the hot air, they rise up, and when they reach the cooler air of the atmosphere, they condense to form tiny droplets. They condense to form tiny droplets, and these tiny droplets, these water vapor, they are actually condensing around some air particles. So if this is an air particle, so these water droplets are condensing around these air particles to form tiny droplets, and the accumulation of all these tiny droplets, they will ultimately lead to very large droplets, occurring in one mass, and this one homogeneous mass, you can say, how is basically your cloud, and this is how your clouds are formed. When a lot of droplets, they accumulate together to form one large chunk of mass, and that floating mass, since the wind is always moving, is known as clouds. And lastly, we have here, list any 3 human activities that you would think would lead to air pollution. So firstly, we know that the harmful air pollutants coming outside of the exhaust of vehicles, that leads to air pollution. The second factor also, we have seen that the industries, the harmful gases, the oxides coming out of the chimneys of the industry, they also lead to air pollution. The third activity, human activity, we can list that as incineration. All right, incineration means burning of what? So burning or combustion of waste. Okay, and um, we know that combustion, it requires oxygen, and it gives out heat as well as carbon dioxide as well as many other gases. So naturally, when you're burning waste, you're not burning something pure that would just release some specific elements into the air, but you are burning waste, so that will lead to the evasion of some harmful gases. All right, some harmful gases that is going to hinder life somewhere or the other. Hinder life in the sense by causing some diseases or causing some other respiratory problems. All right, so these are the 3 human activities that leads to air pollution. And with this, we come to the end of this section. We have discussed about rain, and we have also seen about how acid rain is forming and how air pollution is happening. In this part of the chapter, we'll be learning about water. We'll be learning how water is a wonder liquid. Okay, the natural resource, the important resource of water, and we will be learning about the fresh water, about the saline water, and how much fresh water is important for us, because the occurrence of fresh water it occurs in a very it occurs in very located areas, even though the earth has a total of 75% area that is covered with water. So the presence of water on earth is found in seas and oceans, but the seas and oceans, the water that occur in seas and oceans, it is saline, means it is salty, means there is a presence of salt in the water, and that water is not suitable for the consumption of human beings or even for some animals, because for those animals, the saline quality of that water could be also harmful, similar in the same way that it is harmful for us humans. So that water is not equipped for consumption. So we human beings, as well as other organisms, as well as plants, all of us, we are dependent on fresh water. And this fresh water, this fresh water is found in the very limited areas. This is found in ice caps at the 2 poles, the northern pole and the southern pole, on snow-capped mountains, snow-covered mountains, and also in the rivers, lakes, and ponds. So, and the other areas where we can get this fresh water is the underground water. All right, and one natural phenomenon by which we can get this fresh underground water is in the form of hot springs. All right, but mostly we do not use that directly. The sources of water from which we can use fresh water directly for our purposes can be rivers, snakes, ponds, and also by melting those ice that is occurring naturally in the ice capped mountains or the snow covered mountains. So we have here the ice capped mountains. Okay, the fresh water that you can get from this ice capped mountains, they occur in the form of river. So somewhere or the other, at some place or the other, these mountains, the snow from these mountains is going to melt. It's going to melt in the form of glacier, and ultimately that glacier is going to melt and lead into the river. So that fresh water from these snow is coming to us in the form of rivers, lakes, ponds through the melting glacier. Okay. You have here the water, fresh water that we receive from rivers and lakes and also from ponds, and we also get fresh water from underground that we can that we can also access by digging up tube wells and wells. Okay. But why is water so necessary? Water is necessary because all the important life processes is happening inside the water. Water is acting as a medium. Be it the all the processes that is occurring inside us humans as well. Whatever air, whatever gaseous particle or other particles that we are consuming, be the solid food or be the oxygen that we are respiring or we are breathing in, that is not going inside our body, that is not being consumed by our body by its elemental stage. That means that gaseous oxygen is somewhere or the other mixing up with the blood, and our cells are utilizing those mixed up oxygen from the blood. All right, so a water medium is always present. All right, and not just in us human beings and other creatures as well, a water medium is always present through which every other component is mixing and every other component is interacting inside that respective living organism. All right, also importantly, food and water, the substances that is important for our sustenance, that is also being transported from one part to other through this medium, through this water medium. Okay, so be it in plants like you have seen in the vascular bundle, the xylem and phloem, or be it even in us human beings, we are ultimately drinking water, and these the water components, they are being absorbed and they are being utilized in the process in the formation of all these important mediums, this water like medium that is very relevant for all the life, all the biochemical reactions to happen and all the life process also to happen. But unfortunately, there is water pollution that we need to understand, and we need to understand this so that we can preserve our natural resource, water. Water dissolves the fertilizers and pesticides that we use on our farms. So farmers, they use many fertilizers and pesticides to keep away harmful insects or harmful organisms from destroying the crops. But often these fertilizers and pesticides, they find their way into the soil, and of course inside the soil we have the underground water. So somewhere or the other, these fertilizers and pesticides, they are seeping into the soil, they're seeping inside that underground water, and they are causing water pollution. Okay, so some percentage of these substances are also washed inside the water bodies, like I told you. The other important water pollutants could be sewage. All right, all our waste material that we we human beings are producing, be it our kitchen waste or be it our sanitation waste. So all those, they are somewhere or the other leading to that sewage waste, that waste that is dry as well as wet, and these waste, these are ultimately thrown into the water bodies. As you can see here in this picture, they are thrown into the water bodies, that leads to the pollution of water. Okay, then you have also so we have seen sewage, we have seen fertilizers and pesticides. Okay, and then you have also some coolants. coming out from the industry. So what happens that industries, they have very important reactors, and those reactors, since always there is an exothermic reaction going on, so there's a production of heat and everything. So in order to cool those reactors, water is used. All right, and when that water is being used once, when that cool water is being used once as a coolant, so naturally that is not going to come out as fresh and as healthy as it was, or at as normal, the normal temperature that it was when it had first been used. It is going to come out as very warm, even sometimes hot, and it is going to be composed of some other waste or some other pollutants. All right, because it is being used as a coolant. And that water, most of the industries, they sometimes they treat in the sense, sometimes they remove some harmful waste, but sometimes they do not even treat that pollutant, that water, that hot water, and they dispose it off into the water bodies again, like you can see here in this diagram. Okay, so we have sewage waste, we have coolant waste, and we have this fertilizer and pesticides waste that lead to water pollution. So you can see here in this picture that waste, sewage waste, they are being dumped into the water bodies, and these they are affecting not even they are affecting not just our environment, as it is hampering us to access that water, but it is also affecting the aquatic plants and aquatic animals that are living inside those water bodies, because they you know they absorb the important gases from the water, that is from the water, from the surrounding water. And when we pollute that water, we are some way or the other also allowing those mixtures to be dissolved into the water. So those aquatic animals and plants, they are also absorbing those harmful gases inside the water. Plus they can also, they very unintentionally eat or chew upon those wastage, and that can lead to choking up. All right, and that can ultimately lead to the death. Okay, so this is why it is very important to stop wasting our garbages and our sewage and our waste into the water bodies. Effects of water pollution, that undesirable substance, is that the pesticides that we use, that pesticides could contain poisonous substances such as mercury salts that are used in the paper industries, and they this when these mercury salts, they reach the water bodies, since they are being used as pesticides, so there has to be they are gonna reach the water bodies one way or another. So when they do reach, they can cause disease by organisms, by bacteria, which cause even cholera. All right, so these harmful pesticides may contain mercury salts, and these mercury salts, when they reach the freshwater bodies, they may cause diseases such as cholera. The other effect is that any change that reduces the amount of this dissolved oxygen could affect. So like I told you that when you dump your garbage, your waste, your sewage inside the water bodies, so that is going to affect the elements that are dissolved in the water. Those elements are the aquatic animals and plants they use. So when you dump that waste, you are ultimately leading to the depletion of the dissolved gases, because the wastage is increasing. So the natural properties are going to reduce. The natural properties of the water bodies are going to reduce, because the waste, they are more in number. All right, so other nutrients and the important elements, they may be lost, they may be depleted, and they may not be available for use by these aquatic organisms, and that may ultimately lead to their death. Aquatic organisms are used to a certain range of temperature. So when you are releasing those warm water coolant that you had used in the industries, so you are increasing, you are playing around with the temperature of that water body. All right, so these aquatic animals or plants, they are used to a certain temperature, although they are poikilothermic, that means they are cold blooded. But when that water temperature is going to rise suddenly, all of a sudden, okay, then naturally that increase in temperature will definitely going to affect, okay, other gases, and gases they can be affected. Importantly, the eggs and larvae that they lay inside the water bodies, they are very vulnerable to these temperature changes. So the even though some adult species, they may be able to recover, but those eggs, those larvae, they may not be able to recover, and they may not be able to sustain those high temperatures, and that is dangerous for them as it affects their breathing. Okay. Why do organisms we need water? We know that we need water because all our life processes, it is happening inside water. Water is used as a medium, and all our life aiding processes, it is occurring inside water. Be it the food that we are digesting, or be it the air that we are respiring, be it in us human beings, or be it in aquatic plants that are directly using the gases dissolved, that is dissolved inside the water. So water is used as a medium, and that is why the all of us living organisms, we need water. What is the major source of fresh water in the city, town, village where you live? Okay, so major source of fresh water in the city, town, and village you live, you may find it out. Okay, but it could be this major source could be a river, it could be a lake, it could be a pond. All right, and if you are living somewhere very northern up, where you may have water coming out from glaciers, then the source could be some snow covered mountains. All right, so depending upon whether you live, these could be the possible sources of fresh water. And finally, do you know of any activity which may be polluting this water source? So we have learned of so many water polluting agents. Okay, there may be sewage that is naturally dumped into the water bodies. Then that may be some industrial waste. All right, that is coming out, those effluents. All right, that is being dumped into the water bodies, and also coolants, that water that are being used as coolants, and they are being dumped directly into the water body. So this could be some of the possible polluting items. So with this, we come to the end of this part of the chapter. More we will be learning in the later part.